The arena was carved into the heart of a warship, a perfect circle of polished obsidian that glowed faintly under the artificial sun lamps above. The crowd of alien soldiers, tall, elegant, and armored in shimmering black, surrounded the pit, with silent anticipation. At the center stood Commander Rilke of the Zevran Dominion, one of their most feared duelists, her silver-bladed staff resting lightly in her hand. Her violet eyes scanned the opposite side with cold detachment. Across from her, standing barefoot and unarmored, was a human Manscrafy, bruised, and grinning like he didn't have a care in the galaxy. "Name?" Rilke asked, her voice sharp and formal. "Corbin Vale," he replied with a shrug. "Private Earth Defense Force. Retired, technically." The murmurs rippled through the crowd. A human asking for a duel. It was absurd. But under Dominion law, any prisoner who requested single combat could earn their freedom. If they survived, Rilke raised her weapon, annoyed by the delay. "You understand the terms, Corbin Vale?" He nodded and stretched his neck. "Fight you, win, walk out of here alive. Got it? Or die," she added. He smirked. That part's implied. The signal flare hissed between them. The duel had begun. Rilke moved first, fast as lightning. Her staff struck low, high, then swept toward Corbin's knees in one elegant arc. He dodged, barely. No armor, no shield. Just instinct and scars. She expected him to falter, to trip over his own feet like the last dozen who had stood before her. Instead, he spun inside her next strike and brushed her shoulder with a sloppy punch, not strong but timed perfectly. She pulled back, eyes narrowing. Corbin grinned. "First time I've touched an alien commander. Gotta say, not as scary up close." Rilke didn't answer. She lunged again. Her strikes came faster, precise. Corbin blocked what he could with the battered practice blade they'd tossed him. Metal rang against metal, and he winced with each impact. He was slower than her, weaker, less trained, but he adapted. He watched how she moved, how her feet shifted before a strike, how her eyes flicked to where she planned to hit. And with each pass, he read her just a little better. The crowd grew. Quieter. This was supposed to be an execution. Rilke thrust hard, her blade slicing through his shirt and nicking his ribs. He gasped, staggered, then caught himself with one knee. She advanced to finish it, but Corbin grinned again. He swung low, not at her, but at the floor. Obsidian chipped under his blade, sending dust upward. It wasn't a powerful attack. It was a distraction. Rilke blinked against the sudden glare. And Corbin was there. His elbow slammed into her jaw, staggering her for the first time. He didn't press. He just backed off, panting hard. Rilke wiped a drop of blood from her lip and stared at it. Confused. "I'm not here to win," Corbin said quietly. "Just here to last." The commander adjusted her grip. "You fight like prey that forgot it was cornered." Corbin straightened. "Maybe we just got tired of running." Rilke moved again, but slower this time, watching, studying. The fight changed. From a show of dominance to a test of something deeper. She struck high. Corbin ducked. She feinted left, then swept right, but he didn't fall for it. He didn't win, but he didn't lose either. And in the end, when both were bruised and bleeding, Rilke called for a halt. The crowd gasped. She stood tall. "Corbin Vale, you are free." He looked around in disbelief. That's it. No last-minute betrayal. She walked past him, her voice quiet. "You taught me something. I don't kill those who do that. Corbin followed, limping. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Behind them, the arena lights dimmed. The crew of the warship remained still silent, not in scorn, but in awe. The human hadn't won by strength. He had endured, and that, to the Dominion, was far more dangerous. The corridor outside the arena pulsed with quiet tension. Commander Rilke strode ahead, her silver staff holstered across her back, armor still stained from the duel. She didn't speak, didn't look back, but her pace had slowed enough that Corbin Vale could keep up, even with a limp. He walked a few steps behind her, shirt torn, ribs aching, and heart pounding with the strange realization that he was still alive. "Where are we going?" he asked, breaking the silence. Rilke didn't stop. "The observation wing. You'll be processed and released from custody, just like that." Corbin squinted. No more tests, no blood rituals, not even paperwork. She paused at a junction and turned to face him. "You fought with spirit, not ego. That's rare, even among my own." Corbin blinked. "You mean I annoyed you so much you had to let me go?" For the first time, she smirked. Perhaps they continued down the corridor. The walls were lined with glowing alien glyphs, flowing like rivers of light. Zevran soldiers they passed gave Rilke a respectful nod. To Corbin, they gave curious stares, less hostile than before, but still filled with disbelief. "Never seen a human up close," he muttered. "Not one who earned respect," she replied. "Most of your kind we meet are soldiers, terrified or defiant. You were different." He snorted. "Is that your alien way of saying I talk too much?" Rilke didn't answer, but he caught the twitch at the corner of her mouth. They entered the observation chamber, circular room with a high dome of translucent crystal. Stars wheeled overhead in silent grandeur. In the center, a small platform pulsed gently beneath a glass interface. Rilke gestured. "Step on it. It will scan your physiology and confirm you are fit to leave." Corbin stepped onto the pad. A soft hum rose around him. Beams of pale light traced across his body, pausing briefly at his injured side, then moved on. "Do I get a souvenir?" he joked, like a holographic postcard or something. "You get to live," Rilke replied. "That's more than most who stood where you did." The scan completed. A gentle chime rang out. The system approved his release. Corbin stepped off the platform and turned to her. "So what now? I just leave?" "You are free," she said. "A shuttle will return you to the neutral zone." He hesitated. "That easy?" "No," she admitted. "Nothing about this was easy, but it is done." A silence settled between them, strange and weighty. She hadn't expected to feel anything for a human. He hadn't expected to survive, let alone matter. "I don't think I impressed your crew," he said after a moment. "They don't understand what I saw," she replied. Corbin crossed his arms. "And what was that, Rilke?" Looked at him, then truly looked. "You fought with your whole self, not for pride, not for victory, for life, and for something you refused to name." He blinked, unsure how to respond. "Tell me," she said, voice quieter now. "Why did you ask for the duel?" He exhaled. "Because I didn't want to die in a cage." Her eyes narrowed slightly, and Corbin hesitated, then shrugged. "And I wanted one of you to see what a human really looks like, not when he's kneeling, when he's standing." Rilke's gaze softened just a little. "Now I have." Another silence followed, but this time it felt full, like something unspoken was passing between them. Then a beacon flashed at her belt. She answered quickly. A voice in her native tongue poured through the channel, tense and rapid. Corbin couldn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. Trouble. She replied with crisp efficiency, then turned back to him. There's been an incident on the outer perimeter, she said. A Zevran vessel lost contact near an uncharted system. Corbin tilted his head. That normal? No, not even close. You going? She nodded. Can I come? Rilke raised a brow. You just earned your freedom. He gave her a half smile. And I'm stupid enough to use it by walking right back into danger. Seems on brand, doesn't it? Rilke considered him, her expression unreadable. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. If you're coming, she said, you better keep up. Corbin limped after her, grinning despite himself. The duel had changed everything, not just for him, not just for her, but for something bigger. Neither of them could name yet, and out among the stars it was waiting. The Zevran warship glided through deep space like a shadow made of metal and will. Inside, the tension was thick. Lights dimmed as red pulses tracked down the hallways, and a low siren echoed like a heartbeat of something ancient. Rilke stood at the command platform, her armor restored and spotless, her eyes focused on the star chart hovering in the center of the deck. Around her, Zevran officers worked in silence, disciplined and fast. Corbin stood off to the side, no longer dressed. In rags, one of the officers had reluctantly handed him a basic flight suit grey, slightly too tight and covered in unfamiliar symbols. He scratched the back of his head, watching the holographic data shift and flicker. So, he said, what are we looking at? Rilke didn't take her eyes off the map. A distress signal. One of our scouts vanished beyond the terminus. Line, final transmission was fragmented. Then nothing. Let me guess. You think it's an ambush? No, I think it's something worse. Corbin frowned. Worse than an ambush. She glanced at him. Something unknown. That quieted him. Unknown, coming from someone like her, didn't mean unusual. It meant dangerous. The display zoomed in. A blinking red mark pulsed slowly on the outer rim of the map, in a region tagged only as Sector Null. What's in Sector Null? He asked. Nothing. No known systems. No settlements. No records. He raised an eyebrow. You sent a scout ship there, anyway. Rilke nodded. Because of this, she pressed a command. The last transmission from the missing ship played a burst of static, followed by a distorted voice. Do not belong. Then silence. Corbin stepped forward, a chill crawling up his spine. That's comforting. The crew exchanged wary glances. Even the Zevran, who prided themselves on discipline and control, were unsettled. No one liked ghosts in the system. Set course, Rilke ordered. Engage silent approach. The ship turned, its engines humming with a quiet shift in frequency. Lights dimmed further. The noise of movement faded to a hush. They were slipping into something cold and quiet. Corbin leaned closer to her. You really think this is worth the risk? Her eyes didn't move from the map. If there is a threat, we must understand it. If there is something hidden, we must find it. He studied her profile for a moment. So calm, so focused. You always carry that weight, he asked softly. She tilted her head. What weight? The weight of being the one who has to find answers. Even when you're afraid of what they'll be, Rilke turned her eyes toward him then. Not sharp, not defensive, just searching. I do not fear the unknown, she said. Corbin smiled faintly. Then you're the only one. The ship reached the edge of the terminus line. The stars ahead flickered strangely, like they were underwater or behind a screen of smoke. An eerie silence pressed in from all directions. Rilke gave a soft command. The forward viewport shifted to display a visual feed of the surrounding space. That's when they saw it. A massive field of wreckage. Metal fragments drifting like frozen. Memories, blackened hulls, burnt engines. Some parts still glowing faintly as if recently destroyed. In the center of it, all nothing. A perfect sphere of void, blacker than space itself, hovering silently. Corbin's voice was barely a whisper. What the hell is that? One of the officers answered in a shaken tone. There are no readings, no mass, no energy. It is an absence. Rilke's face was expressionless, but her fingers tightened slightly on the command console. Launch a probe, she ordered. The spherical drone zipped toward the dark mass. Halfway there, it vanished. No explosion, no trace, just gone. The bridge was silent. Corbin swallowed hard. I change my vote. Let's go home. But before anyone could respond, the lights on the ship dimmed further. Then flickered, and a voice come distant. Cold filled the command deck. You do not belong. Every officer froze. Rilke stepped forward. Identify yourself. No answer, just another pulse of that same voice. Leave. Then, for a heartbeat. The dark sphere pulsed faint ripples of violet light spreading out like a heartbeat. Rilke turned to her crew. Shields up. Prepare, for the ship rocked violently, as if struck by a wave of invisible force. Consoles flared, sparks flew. Corbin staggered back, catching himself on a railing. What is happening? He shouted. They're pushing us back. Rilke growled. Another shockwave slammed through the vessel. This wasn't a weapon, it was a warning. Rilke stared at the void one last time, then gave the order. Retreat. The Zevran warship drifted. Back from the edge of the wreckage field, engines humming low as the crew steadied themselves. The command deck was silent now, the only sound the occasional flicker of damaged circuits and the faint, pulsing hum of the shields still at half. Power. Commander Rilke stood rigid, eyes fixed on the space where the black sphere had hovered, but now it was gone. Corbin stared too, arms crossed. A long cut trailing down his left sleeve, where he'd caught shrapnel during the last shockwave. So, he said after a moment, voice hushed, what the hell just happened? Rilke didn't speak for a moment. Her expression remained unreadable. But there was something in her gaze that hadn't been there before. Uncertainty. We encountered something not recorded in our histories, she said finally. Something beyond what we understand. Corbin stepped closer. That thing, it talked. Not just to you, to everyone. It did not speak, she replied. It pressed into our minds, through instinct, through fear. He studied her for a moment, then looked toward the crew. The Zevran were shaken, but hiding it well. Too well, that, he realized, was the most dangerous part. Fear, hidden beneath discipline, had nowhere to go but deeper. Any guesses on what it was? He asked. One of the officers, the older male Corbin had privately nicknamed Grumpy, looked up from his console. The field of wreckage. It's not just Severin. There are Terran hull signatures, and others, species long thought extinct. Corbin's brows lifted. So this place has been chewing up explorers for centuries. or longer, Grumpy said grimly, and none survived to tell of it. Rilke turned from the viewport. We must return to High Command. This can't be ignored. Corbin raised an eyebrow. What do you think they'll do? Send a fleet? No. She looked directly at him. They'll deny it. They'll call it an illusion, a malfunction. To admit otherwise would challenge their control. He let out a breath. That's familiar. The ship moved slowly through the edge of the wreck. Field, scanning fragments, searching for answers. Corbin sat near one of the analysis stations, watching images flicker past burned insignias, melted weapons, shattered data cores. Then something strange, a floating drone, ancient and battered, half swallowed by time. Unlike anything he'd seen. Even Rilke paused when the scan came through. It's not Zevran, she said, and not Terran, he added. They retrieved it when the small, spherical device was brought aboard and placed in containment. It activated on its own. Not violently, it projected an image, a star map. It pulsed, showing a network of ancient systems, ones that didn't exist on modern records. At the center of it all, a symbol, not letters, not numbers. A spiral of broken rings surrounding a central void. Rilke stepped close to it, her voice barely a whisper. I've seen this before, carved into the stone halls of forgotten worlds, always old, always abandoned. Corbin leaned in. This was a civilization, or something else, she murmured. The device changed again, cycling through images of tall, thin beings with faces hidden behind smooth masks, standing in ruined temples, walking through fields of stars that bent around them. Then a final message, in the same flat voice they had heard before. This realm is fractured. We are the silence left behind. You are intruders in a place that was never yours. Corbin looked at Rilke. They weren't just warning us. They were remembering. The room fell quiet. Then Grumpy cleared his throat. Commander, should we transmit this to Central Command? Rilke hesitated. Yes, but not yet. Corbin narrowed his eyes. You're hiding this? I'm delaying. She corrected. Until I understand it. He nodded slowly. You're afraid they'll do the wrong thing. They will react with force. They always do. Corbin crossed his arms. So what do we do? She turned toward him, her voice calm. We find out who they were. He blinked. You want to go back? Not now, she said, but soon, with purpose, with care. Corbin ran a hand down his face. You really don't know how to quit. Rilke studied him, and for the first time there was no command in her gaze. Just trust. You were a prisoner, she said quietly, then a challenger. Now perhaps a partner, he chuckled. Was that a compliment? It was a fact. The warship turned again, the wreckage field falling behind them. But as the stars shifted in the viewport, something lingered in the silence between them. Not just mystery, something more ancient, watching, waiting. The Zevran warship sailed through space at half thrust, slow and silent, not because of damage, but because of thought. The crew had returned to routine checking systems, logging scans, restoring shield integrity. Yet no one spoke freely. The black void they'd seen, it hadn't just shaken them. It had planted something deeper. Doubt in the command chamber. Rilke stood near the edge of the holomap, her hands behind her back, golden eyes scanning the spiral the alien probe had revealed. Corbin leaned against a console nearby, arms folded, watching her more than the stars. So let me get this straight, he said finally. You think that symbol we saw, those rings around the void, wasn't just a warning, was it? She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was low. It was a memory, a mark left behind, not to threaten, but to remind. Corbin tilted his head. Remind who? Us, she said. All of us. He pushed off the console and walked toward the central star chart. You said you've seen it before. In ruins, she confirmed. On planets stripped of life, with no explanation. We thought they were wiped out in war or disease. But now, Corbin looked up at her. Now you think they didn't die. They disappeared, or maybe chose to. Rilke gave a small nod. He let out a breath. But why? Warn us now. She tapped a command, replaying the transmission they'd collected. That same voice, cold and layered, echoed again. This realm is fractured. We are the silence left behind. You are intruders in a place that was never yours. Corbin shook his head. They sound more sad than angry. Rilke studied him. Perhaps that is the message. Not hate, not revenge, just a boundary and a memory. Before Corbin could respond, a chime echoed through the chamber. Accompanying it wasn't from Zevran, High Command. It wasn't from anywhere on their charts. Rilke gave the order. Isolate and decode. The crew worked fast. On the screen, lines of unreadable symbols flickered, then shifted into a visual message. A figure appeared, tall, thin, masked in that smooth, featureless way. Not solid, not flickering, but halfway between light and thought. The same kind of entity they had seen on the derelict ship. But this one looked straight at them. You. Remember, it said. That is enough. Rilke stepped forward. Who are you? We are the remains of what was, the figure replied. We touched stars before your kind named them. We bent time before you charted space. Corbin frowned. Then why are you here now? The entity paused. Because you woke us. Behind it, a spiral of stars formed again. The same pattern. The rings. The void. You enter places forgotten. You reach with hunger and pride. But there is danger in forgetting what came before. Rilke's voice was steady. Is that a warning? No, the entity replied. It is a gift. Then the spiral collapsed inward into a point of light and exploded outward into hundreds of paths, each leading to new systems, new routes, new discoveries. What is this? Corbin asked. A map, the entity said. One last memory. We give it to you not for conquest, but for understanding. Corbin glanced at Rilke. They're offering us knowledge. She nodded slowly, but only if we're willing to. Listen. The entity looked at them both. One of you fought not to win, but to live. The other chose to see, not conquer. That is why we speak. Then, like dust caught in starlight, the figure faded. Silence returned. The crew stared at the map now glowing in the center of the ship full of systems none of them had ever seen. Corbin exhaled. So what now? Rilke turned to her crew. We return. We tell what we've seen. Corbin raised an eyebrow. Even if they don't believe us, we will make them. He stepped beside her, and then she glanced at the map again. Then we go farther, not with fear, but with purpose. Corbin smiled faintly. You sound human when you talk like that. Rilke looked at him. Perhaps I've learned something. They stood there together, warrior and prisoner, commander and survivor, no longer opponents, not even allies. Something else, something new in the void between stars. An ancient memory had awoken. And because of one stubborn human and one curious alien, it had decided not to destroy, but to share.